Leonardo da Vinci said, art is never finished, only ever abandoned. And I get it. I can spend forever tweaking and polishing a song. But in this video, I'm going to break down the song roadmap that I now use to guarantee completion of a song using my 3-step method for the 3 phases of finished. So stay tuned and discover how to streamline your workflow, write with confidence, and to finally stop second-guessing yourself. Hey songwriters, before we get into it though, my name is Celine, and I've been writing songs now for 3 decades. And my process and my systems for writing songs has evolved over these years. But something changed quite dramatically a few years ago when I heard a documentary with the late, great Quincy Jones talking about working with Michael Jackson on his groundbreaking album, Thriller. To summarize that interview for you, Quincy and the engineer were working on mixing for the song Billie Jean. And they'd gotten to mix number 2 when Michael came into the studio and wanted to get involved, as he normally would apparently. And we'll fast forward and cut to 6 o'clock the next morning, and they were on mix 91 of Billie Jean. And I think a slightly exasperated and exhausted Quincy Jones came back into the room and told Michael, "We are done. Absolutely done. You've used pretty much all the reels in the studio, and there's other people booked in to come and record today. We need to be done." And it was at that point that Quincy said to Michael, "Let's just play mix number 2 one more time." And lo and behold, it was mix number 2 of 91 possibilities of a whole night's worth of work wasted because they went back to mix number 2, and that was the one that was released on the album Thriller. Now, this really stuck with me and really impacted my own systems for songwriting and how to know when a song is finished. And one of the most important things I think I learned out of this process was, yes, I should strive for the best work and the best songs and the best production that I can do, but also to trust my instinct and my judgment and stop second guessing myself, meaning I'm wasting so much time. So we're going to go over my 3 phases of finished for when I'm songwriting. Let's get into it. So that first phase I call creatively finished. And what do I mean by that? So this is the point where your song has taken shape. It's creatively raw, it's probably rough, and it's probably nowhere near finished, but it's creatively finished. It's got all the core elements of the song in place. It's got chords, it's got a melody. It may not be the final melody, but there is one. It's got lyrics, and again, might not all be complete to this point, but there is lyrics. And most importantly for me in the creative phase is it's capturing the emotion and the core message that I wanted to portray in this song. So imagine it's just the rough sketch of the painting. It's not the final painting yet. It's just the rough sketch, the idea, but it's also on the canvas so you can recognize what is going to become when it is finished. And that's the same for the song itself. I often find that capturing raw creativity in this phase makes all the difference. And I'm not focusing on every little detail. I'm focusing on capturing the essence of the song and getting the building blocks that I can then tweak and work on later in place from the start. It's like laying down a blueprint for the building. You know where all the rooms are going to go, but you don't know what tiles are going to go in the bathroom just yet. And that's how I know I'm in that creative phase. And getting to the end of that creative phase, I know when it's done because I'm able to present that song as an actual song. I can play it to somebody, I can record a voice demo or a quick guitar and vocal demo, and it's recognizable as a song. It's not just a chorus or a verse or me humming over some chords. It's become a creatively raw and rough song. And yeah, I'm probably humming in some places because I haven't decided on the lyrics yet, or In some cases when I've done this, I've sang the second verse twice because I know I want a third verse, but I haven't yet decided the direction or the actual lyrical content that's going to go in there. And to be honest, it used to scare the bejeebers out of me thinking of sharing my rough and raw songlet with anybody else. But it's something I encourage everybody to do. Sharing your work in its creative, roughest, rawest form in the early stages of the song can be incredibly rewarding. You can do that in an open mic night. You can do it within a songwriting community with some other songwriters to get their valuable feedback early on in the song phase. As songwriters and creative people, we are not good at sharing our unfinished work. But I hold that so dearly now as an incredibly powerful part of my creative phase. And I know once I'm ready to share that song with somebody, I can call it creatively finished. So phase number 2 is the rewriting phase. And a friend of mine once told me that the rewrite is the real write. And I agree. At this point, I've nailed that creative foundation. I've given myself the building blocks and something gritty and earthy and raw to work with when I want to polish and refine my song. The rewriting process is where you iron out all those creases. You finalize those lyrics, those chords, that melody, and you kind of evolve the song. You don't change it. Very rarely do I take a creative phase finished song and it becomes unrecognizable during the rewrite. It's an evolution for that song. It's a tightening up and smoothing out those rough edges. Now, I like to do the rewriting process on a completely different day to the creative process. And the reason I do that is I actually like to listen to those voice memos that I record at the end of the creative phase as the creative finished product. And I listen to them and I kind of, over a course of a few days, will have ideas about the rewriting process. So when I then actually sit down to do the rewrite, I've already got some notes on my phone or in my songwriting book that I then can apply in the rewriting process as a whole. Predominantly, though, I do start the rewriting process with the lyrics. For me, it's quite often the area that I need to spend the most time on because in the creative phase, I often fill in a lot of blanks with some mumbles or some ad-lib lyrics to keep the momentum going so my inner critic doesn't kind of start fighting back. And I've spoken about that in quite a few different videos if you want to go back and rewatch some of them. I make sure I lock in the melody. One of the things I struggle with is deciding how to sing a chorus or how to sing a verse. And sometimes in my creative phase finished voice memo, there could be 3 different ways of singing a verse and 3 different ways of singing the chorus. So I always pinpoint and focus in on those elements to make sure I've completely satisfied with where my vocal melody is going. I'll be going through and making sure that there's dynamics and ebb and flow in the overall feel of the song, where I feel the song needs to lift and where it can drop back and be a little bit more open and raw. I also make sure that I've got the tempo where I need it to be. I try slowing it down a little bit. I try making it faster and then seeing if where I was pitching the tempo in the first place, whether that feels like it's giving the best quality to the song itself. And like I said, one of the most important sections of my rewriting phase is looking at the lyrics. And I spend a lot of time on this, sometimes over a couple of days even, or a couple of songwriting sessions on this kind of thing. I want to make sure the tenses are all consistent through the song. I want to make sure that the pronouns I'm using in the song are all consistent. One of the lyric rewriting techniques I love to use to ramp up my emotion in the song is to upgrade my verbs. And it's actually one of the daily exercises that I talk about in my book, Level Up Your Lyrics. And what it means, upgrade your verbs, is I give 3 lines in my book here. I'll kind of talk you through them so you understand. Is you could say, she walked through the room, or she floated through the room, or she stumbled through the room. And those 3 different ways of expressing that verb of moving through the room can really change your idea about a character and really ramp up the emotional storytelling. And it's one of the 30 different ways that you can have a small daily exercises taking up less than 15 minutes per day to help your lyric writing. And that book is available on all local Amazon stores. And I will put a link in the description below if you're interested to have a look at that. But the most important thing to think about when you're rewriting is that you're enhancing clarity, you're enhancing emotion, you're creating balance and emotional impact for the listeners. And that's the bit that you can't do in the creative phase, because that requires you to be a perfectionist. Your inner critic is really welcome during this phase. Within limits, we don't let it take over, but you want to be a perfectionist. You want to strive for the best and push yourself to the best possible song, but without letting it get too far. And this is the phase of songwriting that a lot of people tell me they get stuck in, is knowing when to stop. It's where their perfectionism and their inner critic take over and run, and they can't stop tweaking. They can't stop changing little things, and they're not trusting their own judgment to know that they're currently holding their songwriting hostage. So what I do is, once I feel the song is positive and coherent, I step away from the song. I have maybe during the rewrite process recorded another few voice memos of the changes and the versions that we've now got. It's often for me to have sometimes 5 or 6 new versions of voice memos of the song through the rewriting process. And I kind of go away, I listen to them, and I decide whether I'm excited to go to a recording studio and get this done in the studio next, or if I'm ready to go back and think about that lyric and I'm still not happy with that lyric. And one of the things someone said to me was a really good indicator about whether you're happy with your song and whether you feel it's actually finished, like deep inside, is to play it to somebody. So again, show your work, share with somebody else, play it to some songwriting peers. And if you can play your voice demo to somebody without talking over the top of it and saying, oh, I'm going to do something about that. Oh, that intro's a bit long, or I don't know what to do in this section. Then I believe that's when you know your song is finished. And it's at that point that I get really excited and I'm itching to get into the studio, and I want to record a more arranged demo at this point. I want to take it from a voice demo with just me and a guitar, for example, and I want to start stretching out what I hear in my head of how this can be arranged. And that's when I call it song finished. So finally, phase 3 is where we get to the technical finish line. We've already had 2 phases of finished, but now we're heading towards the complete song. But before we can get there, we need to ask ourselves a few questions about what the goal is for this song. Because the goal of the song can change some of the decisions you make in this final phase. So if your goal for the song is to release it as an artist or as a band yourself, you need to decide then if it's going to be on an EP or an album or released as a single. And also you need to decide whether or not it's going to be the next thing you record, or is it kind of further down the line for you? So other options and decisions you might need to make here is, will it be pitched to artists for them to record? Or will you be pitching it maybe for TV and movie sync opportunities? Or is it just to play live at gigs at this point? And all those questions determine a different type of finished in this final phase. And I'll try and explain that a little bit without going for the next 3 hours of all the different options you could be taking at this point. So for example, if you're pitching to an artist, you might only be wanting to do a piano vocal or guitar vocal demo, and only a demo, but still a really well recorded demo. Is so that the artist can imagine their take on the song. So if you were to give them fully produced band arrangement recorded in a professional studio, it might be a very expensive overshoot at this point for the purpose of the song. However, if you're going to be recording it yourself with a band or just as a solo artist, if you're releasing it into the world, maybe producing vinyl or CD runs, then you've got to get into a studio and get it recorded fully. And then you've got to have an idea of what kind of arrangement you want. And then decide if it's a home studio recording or a recording studio, maybe a big recording studio or a local recording studio. And if you're going to work with session musicians, or you've got some friends playing other instruments, or maybe you're going to play all the instruments on the recording song. And that's a lot of decisions in just one option, really, isn't it? Now, I've took the time to learn some home recording techniques, mainly during 2020 lockdown. I spent a lot of time getting to grips with doing that myself. But I quite quickly decided that I'm more happy with my music being recorded in a professional recording studio. And I work with two amazing producers in a studio, Inspire Music Studios in Stone in Staffordshire. And those guys are brilliant producers, but also brilliant session musicians as well. And between the three of us, we normally can provide all the instrumentation that I need for my songs. Sometimes we've borrowed some other people for backing vocals or some other instrumentation, but normally the three of us can produce what I decide is my sound together in the studio. Because I believe if you're putting it out into the world, it needs to be the best possible recording of your song it can be. Now, you may be able to do that at home. You may be an accomplished multi-instrumentalist with a lot of knowledge on how to use Logic or Pro Tools, for example. You may have it all available to you at home. I'm not happy with my own capabilities at home recording. I know I can do better with other people who specialize in different instruments that I want to use. I also prefer the sound of live drums against programmed drums, but I know some people will be using drum loops, which I don't particularly like for my sound, but moving from drum loops to programmed drums may be a big step up for them. So it's all about you and your situation and what, if you can serve your song with the best possible recording, you spend all this time writing it, the creative phase, the rewriting phase, you've made everything perfect, is spending the time and the energy and sometimes the money on the recording phase. And while I'm in the recording studio, sometimes I get these little flickers of inspiration of, oh, this would sound great there. Because as the song arrangement is now unfolding, I can hear little things or I get these little ideas. But again, I'm not changing the kind of creative, I'm not changing the creative essence of the song that was completed and finished in phase 1 or phase 2. I'm enhancing it further again in this final phase. And when it's recorded and the song is locked in and it's finally finished, that is officially the end of my songwriting process. For me, it's been creatively written, it's been rewritten, and then it's been arranged, recorded, mixed, and mastered in a professional studio, and I am ready to send it out into the world. But this phase, this final third phase of writing songs, is highly dependent on the end goal of your song. But this is what I call actually finished. So there we have it. That's my 3 phases of songwriting and 3 phases of finished. I can't tell you how much it's helped me when developing this system in my productivity as a songwriter. I know where I'm at in each of the phases. It enables me to move through those phases. I'm able to have that creative phase with no sign of my inner critic or procrastination or perfectionism. And then I move into the phase where I allow that to get to work, where I need it to create that actual song finished, where I believe I've got the song to the best possible standard. And then I move on to the final phase because I know at this point that my goal is to release it myself or whatever I've decided. I know what my goal is, which means then I'm more efficient when it comes to spending money in a recording studio. And being efficient in a recording studio, it means I'm enjoying it more because I know what I want out of the process. I hope you've enjoyed this video and you've got some value out of it. And if you have, you may enjoy this one right here, which is all about songwriting habits and how habits contribute towards our productivity and our creativity. And if you do have any questions about my 3 phases of finished, please drop them in the comments and I will see you down there. Till next time.